Good morning or good evening, depending on which part of the world you are in. Welcome to this month's edition of Inspiring Careers with John Waters, and I'm delighted to say I've got a young man that I helped get a role nearly 20 years ago at IBM. Taraz Lalehzari, welcome to Inspiring Careers.
Thank you so much, John.
You happy to be here?
Definitely.
You know, I was just thinking on the train this morning, whenever we do these shows, I'm always trying to think about the intro, and I was saying to the kids last night, there used to be a guy called Leslie Crowther in the UK, did a show called The Price is Right. And he always used to shout, Taraz Lalehzari, come on down. So we might have to make that as the new intro.
That sounds great.
So listen, lots to get through. I'm very excited about having you in because we've been great friends for years.
Definitely.
I want to talk about your career today. And I also want you to give people advice on investing because I use you as one of the icons in our industry in terms of somebody who's had the most wonderful career. But also, to be fair to yourself, you've looked after your family incredibly well with your investing strategies. And for the audience, I can say that I remember talking to Taraz and his mom and dad 20 years ago in his house, and he did tell me he was going to build a strategy of investing to look after the family, and that has come to fruition. Let's talk about your career. How did you get started in IT?
Yeah, so I started in IT 20-some years ago. You
don't have as many grey hairs as most of the punters in the game. Hey?
Absolutely. Yeah. I did definitely get my grey hairs. It was more in management than anything else. So I started 20 odd years ago. I was fortunate to get into pre-sales from the get-go and have been in it ever since. So went to a number of organizations. From IBM, went to OpenText to Oracle, and then from Oracle, I had a stint at Sage and was at Zuora for a number of years.
Yeah. I'll tell you what's interesting, because obviously I come from a sales background. You've always been a very senior technical pre-sales guy. You've never wanted to go into the full-on sales role. And I suppose the question is, you obviously see pre-sales as a very important component, I should say, of the sales cycle. Which do you prefer?
I personally prefer pre-sales. However, have I thought of going into sales? 100%. It's two sides of the same coin. Ultimately, you need to understand what are the organization's business objectives, what are the challenges that are stopping them in achieving those objectives, and then how can our solution fit in? I believe that very strong senior pre-sales people have a broad range in terms of the gamut of knowledge. One is around the solution itself, but more importantly, they also understand and have very strong commercial acumen.
Yes, and I've always felt that good senior pre-sales guys give the organization great credibility when you're engaging with those C-suite professionals. Now, leadership or individual contributor, you've done both.
Yeah, good question. I have been blessed to have had both of those in my career. Twice as a people leader, which was great. I think that the best way to answer that is actually based on what stage in your life and also your career you're at.
Okay.
So as an example, I thoroughly enjoy coaching people, helping get the best out of people. And some of the guys that actually even used to report into me at Oracle have now gone on to become SVPs at Salesforce and so on and so forth. So it's great to see that. But to answer your question, at this stage in my career, I think that an individual contributor is more suited to my family and my needs.
And I suppose, to be fair, that gives you other options in terms of some of the stuff we may talk about today. Different cultures in the companies, any particular good cultures, any particular bad cultures, without mentioning names?
No, like when you say cultures, do you mean like the organization as a whole or the teams within the
organization and the way they treat their people?
Yes. Okay. I have predominantly worked for US-centric organizations. However, I have had the pleasure of also working for a UK-based organization. I feel that US-based organizations are very revenue focused and driven.
Yes.
And that culture is not necessarily a bad thing. It just depends on what stage of a growth cycle an organization's at. So
yeah. What about leadership? What do you look for in a good leader?
I believe in truthfulness and trustworthiness. These are human qualities above anything else, and someone that actually has your best interests at heart. So I believe that that is probably the most important part of being a great leader, which is can actually empathize, put yourself in other people's shoes, and actually understand. Well, yes, I've got to balance out the needs of the organization because I am a people leader, but at the same time, I actually need to take care of my team.
Now, that's interesting because, say, for example, I'll ask you two questions. They'll be simultaneous in a sense. You coaching people, did you set aside time for it? And then when you get people into your team, what do you look for first of all when you're looking to recruit for your team?
Yeah, for me, when I was looking for people that would come into my team, I actually, above all else, would look at will over skill.
Okay, just explain that for us.
So what does that mean? So what that means is that I had brought in people into my team that may not have known the product or the industry, etc., but really had grit and wanted to really drive to succeed. They had something to prove, and that drive was what I refer to as the will.
Yes, yeah. And in terms of you coaching people, and everybody's got a different philosophy or methodology, was it an on-the-job thing, or did you try and put time aside every month? How did you structure your coaching career, as it were?
Yeah, it's so when I first got my my people leadership role at Oracle many years ago, I had 16 people that were reporting into me. It's quite substantial. They were younger people. They were all business development type folk. And ultimately, I felt that for them, you need to actually spend a bit more time in talking about what is it that they actually want to be achieving, what's the direction they want to be going. And I kind of saw them as unspecialized cells in the body of Oracle at the time. So some of them went on to become salespeople, some of them went on to become pre-sales people, and some of them decided to go out into different areas. Ultimately, the time that was allocated, I actually had time allocated every single week with them. And sometimes we were talking about what actually needed to be achieved in terms of the day-to-day. But a lot of the times it was actually just understanding where they were at in terms of the skills that they needed to develop, the direction they wanted to go to, why they wanted to go in that direction, and how it aligned with their objectives.
So how did you do that then? Did you set sort of KPIs even on a quarterly or 6 monthly basis just to try and get everybody tracking?
Yeah, definitely. So there was obviously the KPIs that needed to be met for the organization, but there was also the need for setting personal goals. So you can call them KPIs if you want, but ultimately it was where do you actually want to get to and what's actually stopping you in getting there? And let's actually systematically overcome those elements.
Yeah. So what happens therefore if you have to have a difficult conversation with people?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes it was. I think that it's not necessarily a difficult conversation. It's the self-realization that needs to come about. And I think a good leader actually asks questions for that self-realization to come about.
Yeah. And for you yourself, I mean, I always from the outside in perceive these careers to be smooth and seamless. Have you had any difficult moments in your career?
I most certainly have, yes. Like most people, I was growing in my career, and it was actually at Oracle, there was a restructure. And it was the first time I was going through a restructure. So I was like, this is really odd. What actually is happening? I just have a brand new baby girl who's 6 months old. So it was a bit of a moment where I was like, what do I actually need to do? But I was fortunate to be able to help all of my team members either get into other roles within Oracle or find roles outside of Oracle before they gave the formal, hey guys, there is the restructure in place.
So, and excuse my ignorance, did you get retrenched as well?
I was,
okay.
yes.
Okay. How did that impact on your self-esteem, for example, if you're always a guy that's been successful in everything that you do?
Yeah, it is a tough one for people. Like I think the thing is that you need to understand why it's actually happened. Number one, And yeah, for someone who's always had a role, through their whole life, to be in a position where you're like, you got a family, you don't actually have the standard income that used to come in, is pretty shocking. And so I was in a very fortunate position because of my investing, that I didn't need to stress as much as most people. But it is very odd. It's like, I've been working for 15 years, and then all of a sudden, there's this massive gap in time where you're not actually doing anything.
Now, I will hit you with one that I hadn't even thought about, but I'll hit you with it anyway. You've got such a nice style about you. You've got such good commercial skills. Did you ever think, I'm going to call it going to the dark side and going to a client role, or have you always enjoyed being on our side?
I most certainly have thought about that.
Okay.
It's because for the 20 odd years that I've been working, it's always been vendor side. But I've always said to myself, what would actually happen if I actually went onto the other side and helped organizations in a capacity where I'm working with vendors? So it definitely is something that I have thought about, and maybe something that I do later in
Actually,
in my
we
career.
might talk about later in the discussion in terms of what you're going to do, over the next 10 or 15 years, funny enough. But I just thought you'd make a great, CIO. Do you get on well with the people the CIOs and the CTOs, do you get on well with them?
Yeah, definitely. So I've, as a part of my vendor work that I've been doing, I generally speak with C-level executives, whether they're CFOs, CIOs, COOs. And ultimately, they're just normal human beings. Right?
And do you, without being arrogant, do you feel that you add a bit of extra value? What do you do differently from most sort of pre-sales guys or pre-sales directors?
I think the main thing is rather than talking about the product, it's all about them and their business, because everyone has an issue that needs to be resolved. And they're looking for help. Everyone's looking for help. Right, you just need to listen. So I think good pre-sales people and good salespeople have a very, very good knack for listening, asking the right questions, and not talking about themselves, but talking about the outcomes that actually need to be delivered.
Yeah. Now, interestingly, have you seen a difference in the COVID and post-COVID world in terms of the way you do business or the way you prefer to do business? Are you a face-to-face guy, or are you a Zoom guy, or a mix?
I was always face-to-face. COVID made it that everything was on Zoom. And I still prefer the face-to-face. Last week I was just in New Zealand, meeting with a client down in Hamilton. And it was great to be able to eyeball, there was like 10 people in the boardroom, eyeball them, ask questions. If there were concerns, to be able to address those concerns. When you're behind Zoom, the problem is that you don't actually get the opportunity to see how people's body language is. And that is a majority of communication.
And that would be the same, surely, in your coaching capacity. I mean, if you've got a team and, I think everybody now, say if you've got a national role, you're coaching people all over the country. Do you make an effort to get out and meet them face to face, or bring them to Sydney once a quarter or whatever? Yeah. Yeah,
definitely. Yes. It's a necessity. There are obviously business constraints where they say, hey, this is how much budget we have for these sorts of things, but absolutely.
Now, I will ask you one question, and then we will talk about investment strategies. I'm going to hit you with one you didn't expect. Has your career been important to you?
I think that it has been important. And the reason why I think it's been important is because it allows structure in your life, and it allows you to be able to strive for things, and it gives you material progress, without a doubt. That's the reason why people go to work. It's predominantly to have a life, right? And so they need to pay for their family, they need to pay for their education of their children, etc. And so having not only a job but a career allows you to be able to translate what you do to earn an income into actually something that you enjoy doing.
Yeah. I will get you to talk about investing, and the point on this part of the show, and I will look at the camera, I love talking to people who can give people advice about how to manage themselves, what I call off the park in soccer terms. We've all got careers. You're talking to a punter who spent a lot of money on horses badly, so I'm getting learning myself here. But I'd like Taraz over the next 10 or 15 minutes to give us a rundown on his investments, how you get into them, and what advice he can give us. How did you get started? Even when you were a young man, were you, 10, 13, 14, 15, were you always thinking about investing?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that when I was 13, 14, I was thinking about it, but I understood when I was young that in order to not be tied down by money, you need to achieve it, and it's not an aim; it's a tool. Money is a tool. People think that it's the objective. That's not the case, right? So having financial success actually does help you materially. It gives you time, and that time allows you to be able to do other things.
So give us a rundown on the journey then. I mean, and I presume this is a process of self-learning and doing code. It's the same thing we do in our career. Yeah, do you treat this as a second career, as it were?
100%.
Yeah.
Like, from day dot when I joined IBM, it was funny. The realization actually came when I saw quite elderly people still working. I just started working. I was 19 years old.
Category? Yeah.
Absolutely not. You're a business owner. You're a business owner. It's very different.
Okay.
And I said to myself, man, I don't want to be 65, 70 years, like going into retirement and still needing to work. And so I said, look, how do we actually get out of this? So I did a bit of research, and there's a couple of avenues you can go. This might sound bad, but I'm going to say it. If you work for someone, it's very low risk. You always get your paycheck, but it doesn't make you rich.
Yes.
If you start your own business, like yourself, John, it's high risk, but high reward.
There are people out there who would obviously feel that I'm completely unemployable, which is why I have no choice but to have my own business. Yeah, but I agree with you. I mean, I've been on commission only since I was, 23, 24? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
How do you start? Give people advice. What's the first thing? Is it a mindset? What's the first thing?
Yeah, the first thing is mindset in terms of what's the objective or the goal that needs to be achieved. So the story is that I was at IBM. There was I said to myself, look, I'm earning $38,000 a year. It was ridiculous. And I was still living at home. I was 19 years old. And I said to myself, hey, if I go and buy an asset, and it was a commercial asset, mind you. I bought my first property was a shop that had a cafe running in it. I said to myself, hey, I can actually improve my cash position. After every month I could be $1,000 up after expenses, and so it was very short-sighted in the sense that $1,000 a month will not make you rich. But in the context of someone who was 19 years old and was working at IBM at the time, it was an opportunity to say, hey, from $38,000, my income's jumping to $50,000.
Yes. Yeah.
Again, it's not the right thing to do, but it was a good lesson. So the key things that I'd say to people as lessons for investing, number one, money makes money. So you have to save money. If you don't know how to save money, you cannot invest, which is the third way. So one is working for someone, the second is business, and the third, which I think is relatively low risk but has a high return, is investing, which is the path that I took. So money makes money, so you have to save money. The second rule is that once you've saved your hard-earned money, you need to invest in the things that you're familiar with.
Okay.
That's really important.
Okay.
So if I go and open up a shoe business, I will lose my money. Why? Because I don't know anything about it. And so anyone who's working needs to think, okay, I'm working right now, I'm earning a salary, a percentage is going to my mortgage, groceries, cost of living, etc., but I'm allocating X amount to saving. That then becomes the mechanism in which you actually start to grow your wealth. So that invested money needs to be put in things that you're familiar with. I was not familiar with the share market. I was going to say,
you've mentioned that a couple of times now. My apologies for interrupting. Did you feel that because of the Australian dream that property was the most suitable vehicle for you to study or get involved in? Because you've got gold and stocks and bonds. I'm curious as to why you went down the property route.
It's an excellent question. I think that at first it wasn't active. I didn't think of it as, hey, if I do this, there'll be benefits. besides the short-term thinking of $1,000 a month income. I chose property because I felt I understood it a bit better. But that was a fallacy because I didn't when I first started. And it is a learning process. But I didn't put anything into shares. I said, you know what? I understand property to a greater degree, so I'm going to start to put my money in it. So now, for me personally, I think it depends on the way that the person thinks. So when I look at the stock market, like if I've put $100,000 in and it goes up 20%, for me, it's like take the money out. With property, you can't do that, right? It's not as easy. That is a disadvantage in that it's not liquid, but the benefit is that when you put your money, it compounds and grows and you can't easily take it out, right? And for me, that was actually a benefit. So it depends on the person. Some people are really good with shares. And I know some people that have made a mozza from share investing, but you need to have a lot of discipline. And for me personally, I felt shares was riskier because I was putting my trust in the CEOs of the business to grow the business as opposed to putting in myself. So there are two very different kettles of fish in terms of how investing is done.
And I'm enjoying this because I'm learning. Did you look at townhouses, houses, units? How did you decide? Have you got a certain model that you buy a certain thing in property?
Yeah. So after the lessons that I've learned, I have gone into a combination of two. So I'm a property developer.
Okay.
I do property development now.
Yeah. Yeah. And excuse my ignorance, does that mean you subcontract people to do your building and all that?
Yeah, that's correct. So I might get a plot of land. So I've got a site that I just acquired earlier this year. I get designs for 6 homes on it, and then subcontract the actual construction and sale.
Yeah. Is that riskier? Obviously risk and reward.
It's risk and reward.
Yeah.
It is. You need to be mathematical in property development. It's not the same as just buying a house, which is what I started off with, or buying a shop for that matter. But what will happen, and maybe we can have another podcast on this, is that with property investing, it's a game of finance. So I saw Mark Boris is on the Hall of Fame there. He understands exactly that. It's all about access to funds, access to money, right? So property investing is about access to funds. And so you need to partner with someone that understands that really well and can actually help you. So, most people think, oh, I've bought 1 or 2 houses, that's it. I can't do anything more than that, or I just want to buy my owner-occupied property and pay it down. There's a gazillion paths you can take. I actually was a rent investor for many, many, many years until I bought my house outright.
Okay. Is that where you live in a district you like, but you haven't bought a house, but you're happy?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think it's a great way. There's tax benefits.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it in another podcast.
I'll be delighted to, because it's all part of our career success channel very much is, in my book, philosophically managing your career from the minute you get out of bed in the morning.
Correct.
Until the minute you go to bed. And that includes managing your health and your finance and your exercise, etc. Let's run with 2 questions about that. And then I want to talk about your career again. Well, in fact, how do you manage your time then?
It's a good question. So having 3 kids, it is pretty tough because they're like, Dad, I want to do this, Dad, I want to do that, etc. But I feel that by having the ability to have more time allows you to be able to then focus on things that are important. So you need to grow your career. You need to be the best that you can be in your field that you've chosen. You need to use the proceeds of that work to invest or to do something that is going to grow. You're planting the seeds for tomorrow, and ultimately then be able to have the time to do things like spending time with family, focusing on your health, and so on and so forth. So
just on that, because and once again, I will make the point for everybody. You also have to be careful because you have to show your current employer that you're completely committed
100%,
to it.
100%.
If somebody phones you up, Taraz, I want you to come to a sales meeting. You say, oh, big lad, I'm looking at a property on the Central Coast. It's not going to go down well. Do you manage your time well in terms of focusing on your career and your property investment?
Yeah, absolutely.
Doesn't interfere with it?
It doesn't interfere at all, and it shouldn't, because there is a commitment that you've made to your employer. So I think for most people that are working, property is a good vehicle because you can buy, set, and kind of forget. Yes, it might be negatively geared initially, but then later on it'll become positively geared and it'll give you massive amounts of wealth.
Yeah. Two questions on that. Biggest mistake you've made?
It was actually my first property.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I bought the place. It was probably about 20 years ago. It grew by $50,000, which was ridiculous. So property is not like, if you want to get rich with property, you need to go into high growth areas.
Okay.
Cash flow is great when you're retired and you don't have a job or income and you need some sort of lifestyle income. So if people are wanting to go and make wealth out of property, they need to look at high growth areas as opposed to cash flow.
And obviously we're sitting here in Australia. I mean, the principles would apply in any country.
100%.
UK, America, et cetera, et cetera. You know, there are opportunities for people there. Okay. Is there a book, and I'm going to mention this, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad about 3 years ago, and I thought, right, I need to start taking this, and it was a great book. Anything you'd recommend for people? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
I actually was going to suggest Rich Dad, but if they haven't read it, they should watch
I'll have to do an
video.
evaluation on that on my Career Success channel then.
I think it's fantastic. Yeah, it's great. It's really easy to read, straightforward, and it helps a lot.
Yeah, brilliant. Let's talk about your career again. How do you keep up to date with advances in technology?
Yeah, so the tech is rapidly advancing as always. My dad used to make the mainframe systems that still run in banks, but he now asks me, hey, can you help me with drafting a letter in Google Word?
Yes.
It's just the nature of technology that it's rapid and it changes rapidly. And in order to stay on top of it, one, you need to have a passion for it, but you need to continually invest in your learning. So if there's downtimes that you have at work, don't take it as a time to waste. Use it as precious time to be able to reinvest in yourself.
Yeah. And just on that, I mean, do you do regular, I mean, I suggest to people what I call an annual skills audit. What do you do to keep making sure that you're going, and in fact, I'll ask you the question, do you have mentors?
Yeah, so I actually started my career with a mentor. I was at IBM. I asked the general manager at the time. His name was Stephen Worrell, who's now, he was the managing director of Microsoft up until recently, but he was actually my mentor. And I asked him, look, what do I need to develop? I'm just new to the industry, and that helped a lot. I think that don't just depend on yourself with that. There's a lot of knowledge and wisdom from peers, from mentors. And so just ask the question. Most people don't ask the question. I had the courage to ask, and it came.
And therefore, are you doing a little bit of mentoring yourself these days? I know you've got your your community, which I'm going to get you to talk about, which I admire. But to talk about, your philosophy in the IT game in terms of giving back.
Yep. Yeah, I think that the concept of giving back is actually, it's funny because when you give, you actually gain a lot more. And anyone who has given understands that when you give, you actually get a lot more in the process. Not because that's the reason why you're doing it. It's just the way that the universe works.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of my Hindu friends, or they come from like an Indian background, they believe in karma. And so the mentoring process in itself needs to not be something that's rigid. It needs to naturally come about as a part of a scenario. I've had salespeople that have been my mentors that I work with on a day-to-day basis. And it wasn't because I asked them at that point in time, hey, I need a mentor. It actually just naturally came about. So sometimes when you're younger, you go and ask directly, and that's not a bad thing as well. You get coaching. But other times, use it as an opportunity to say, hey, I can see that this person can actually use my help. How do I actually help them?
Yeah. What do you do away from work? I know we've talked about that. Well, are you an active participant, for example, in kids' sport? Do you take the taxi service at the weekend, hey?
Yeah, well, I have to say that my wife, God bless her, is the one that does a lot of the heavy lifting with that, and I am indebted to her. But yeah, sometimes the kids want to go and play cricket. Sometimes they want to go and play football. It's my children haven't actually set something regularly on weekends. They usually just do it with their friends.
Yeah, yeah. And tell everybody about the movement that you're involved in, the philosophy of the Baha'i, etc. Is that something, excuse my ignorance, that your family have been with all your life?
Yes, I was born as a Baha'i. So the Baha'i faith is the youngest independent world religion. And the philosophy is that everyone is ultimately praying to the same God, right? And there needs to be unity between all the religions because there's only really one religion,
okay,
which is the religion of God. People unfortunately use religion as a means of trying to separate themselves or society or classes, etc. That's never been its intention. That is man-made. And so I would be very surprised if the divine educators, I like to call them, of all of the religions, if they all came together, they would be the best of friends. Yet people, unfortunately, make the disunity.
Yeah, well, I think I mentioned to you earlier, and I'm being a smart arse, excuse my French, but one of my great quotes and one of my favourite quotes, having grown up in the streets of Northern Ireland and seeing people shooting each other all the time, the great Mr. Gandhi said, I like your Christianity, but I don't like your Christians. So I think that sums it up. Let's talk about your community. With your Baha'i community, do you have a service once a week? How often do you guys get together? What do you do for the community?
Yeah, so to be a Baha'i means that you need to serve humanity.
Okay.
That's your objective. So that service can take any form, right? It could be, running moral education classes. It could be, there's stories of people actually creating like community gardens to bring people together. So ultimately, what's the fundamentals of it? It's to unify the world. There's a oneness of man, oneness of religion, equality of men and women, and a number of other ultimate philosophies in it. It's a funny story because from my mother's side, she's Russian and Turkish, and so she comes from a Muslim background. And from my dad's side, he's actually a blood descendant of Moses himself. And yet they came together and are very united, happily been married together for many, many years. And so they instilled within myself, and hopefully I'm doing the same thing with my children, that to be a Baha'i actually means to serve others, to help, and never to be a cause of disunity.
Yeah. Do you have young people in all that involved? I mean, I'm curious as to what you guys do with your younger community in terms of educating them on the importance of talking to other people from other religions and not fighting with them, for want of a better word.
That's definitely one of them. But when I was younger, I was actually what's referred to as a junior youth animator. And so the animator ultimately acts as an older youth that helps people that are aged between 11 and 15. And helps them to think about multiple things. One is positive and negative forces in society. And an example of that is being aware of what leads to loftiness and what leads to lowliness, meaning what uplifts you and what actually takes you down.
Just explain that further. Is that in terms of people's psychology or the lack of company, for example? What would you briefly define would make that happen to people? Hey?
Yeah, I think that is definitely one element, which is the union of people and who you actually deal with, but also what is it that actually makes you a human being, right? Because a lot of people think that we're just animals, but the reality is that we're slightly different from an animal. Yes, we're physically like an animal. We need to eat, sleep, etc. But humans also have the ability to be kind, to be forgiving, to have justice, to be caring, like, and so on and so forth. So the point is that those are human qualities, or what I like to refer to as spiritual qualities. And so when you think about positive and negative forces in society, you need to think, well, what does that actually lead to? Like, where does that lead me to? Like, if I take this path, where does that actually take me as an end game? Because there's a lot of negative forces. One is, I would say, drug abuse as an example. So young people, they're like, hey, that's it's prolific in society. What actually happens if you actually go down that path? And most times it's actually a negative path that actually
just
takes
on
you
that,
out.
by the way, and I'm sorry for interjecting because I'm absolutely loving talking to you. Have you managed anybody that's gone off the rails?
I have.
And you're able to help them get back on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's there's beautiful, like it actually makes me feel honored to be able to have helped somebody. But there's also has been cases where I haven't been able to help people. And unfortunately there's been suicides and so forth. So it's not a magic pill. There's no magic pill, right? It's about everyone actually needs to help everyone as well as they can, knowing ultimately that we're the cells of one body.
Yes.
Right? Like we don't even think about it, but the cells in our body are continually helping every other cell, right? If the red blood cells in our body wasn't transporting the oxygen, we'd be dead instantly. And they're not doing it for themselves. They're doing it for every other cell. And so if we actually think about humanity as a body and we being the cells of that body, we have a duty to be able to help each other out.
Yeah. No, I've always admired the way you go about your business. Question for you once again, ad lib. Do you do anything on LinkedIn where do you give any people advice on investing?
I have privately. This is probably the first time I'm doing it publicly.
I'm just curious if there's something that you can do in the IT game where you can even, have an investors club or whatever. No, don't ask me. I'm the worst investor of money in Australia, but I'm going to learn from you, right? Which is the good news. But let's seriously talk about that over the next 6 to 12 months, because I'd love to do another one where we have a structure in terms of giving people advice. And the great thing about that, as we said, is it is global, because like I interviewed a gentleman yesterday who's from the UK originally, is telling me that him and his wife have bought 5 or 6 houses over there in the last 10 years, even though he lives in Australia.
Yes.
So it's all different. Couple of questions to finish out, because we could talk all day. Talk to me about your career now going forward. What are we going to do?
Yeah, so I think that for the short term, I'm probably going to continue being an individual contributor. And that just suits me because I have 3 young children. Moving forward, once my children get a little bit older, I would like to use my time to be able to give back. And I see that as what a true leader actually is giving back to the people rather than taking. I do angel investing, so I'll probably sit on a couple of boards as well.
I was going to ask you that. Because obviously we've done that AICD course, is fantastic. Do you see yourself angel investing, CTO type, mainly in the what I would call the tech startup community? Yeah,
so a majority. So I've invested in about 15 companies.
Have you? Okay, yeah.
Through Sydney Angels. I'm a member of Sydney Angels. Some of them have failed, but the general rule is that you, again, invest in things that you're familiar with and you cast your net wide. So I have invested in tech companies. Some of them are actually about to exit, which is going to be great. I have also invested in biotech because I was like, hey, you know what? There's a lot of smart angel investors here that are putting their money down on it. I might as well do it as well.
And for everybody, once again, that angel investors, is that a group that meets regularly, or how can people join that? Hey?
Yeah, so you need to. So there's a bit of a rule around how to actually get in.
You need to have money, yeah.
You need to have money. But ultimately, you need to be a sophisticated investor, which allows you to then be able to put your money into what 99% of the world actually doesn't have access to, which is startups. Is very risky. I will say that. I would definitely not recommend it for anyone starting up. Starting to grow their wealth. Again, it's an opportunity to be able to invest in a company and not only invest your money, but also invest your time to be able to help grow that business.
Just one question on that. Is that a pan-Asia or a global investor lobby, or do they do mainly Australia?
So it is only Sydney Angels. So it is in Australia, but some of the guys have invested in quite well-known Aussie startups like Employment Hero, etc., that have just gone berserk and do go international. But yeah, it is more within Australia.
So, I mean, do you feel that the state of the Australian and the Asia Pacific tech industry is actually quite healthy at the minute in terms of, I'm going to call them emerging stars, young entrepreneurs with great minds? Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. So the thing is that the government in Australia doesn't encourage startups as well as other countries like the US. But we're trying to change that. We're trying to provide a mechanism to say, hey, you've got a great idea, you've got a drive, we can actually help you with capital. And not only capital, we can also help with guidance, whether it is legal, whether it's technology, whether it's sales oriented, so on and so forth.
I will say, because I'm about to hit you with the last question, I'm very keen for you to be involved in our Career Success channel because I've always trusted your judgment. And I think it would be wonderful for us to help so many people globally with the various videos that we're putting together in terms of hoping to help 1 million people with their career journey. Last question. What advice have you got for young people, either in the IT game or starting their careers generally?
I would say that for young people starting in technology, one, don't be scared of AI.
Okay.
I think that
we haven't even talked about that today.
We haven't even spoken about that, but
yeah.
I think that there's an opportunity to embrace and to grow it, but also there needs to be consistent effort, never give up. There will always be obstacles. There'll be times when people will say, hey, there's been a restructure or the economy's gone to the toilet and then things have changed. Continue to persevere, invest in yourself as much as you can, and also invest outside because it's going to be necessary.
Yeah. No, I'm absolutely delighted with that. Are you happy with that today?
Loved it.
Any final comments that you would make?
You're a good man.
Oh, thank you. So it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to Taraz. We will discuss a future discussion about perhaps putting together a group for investing, etc. My mum used to have a wonderful phrase, and she used to say, he is an absolute scholar and a gentleman. And I think everybody can see that Taraz certainly fits in that category. I'd like to thank everybody for watching. We will come back with our Christmas edition. Taraz Lalehzari, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.